All right. Okay, well, we're picking up again with Sri Sharda Devi and her divine play, which is the story of Sri Sharda Devi, a disciple, really the first disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, but came to be recognized as a direct incarnation of God, as the divine. Interestingly, in the Vedanta, they believe that every time that God incarnates, that there's both the male and the female aspects, and so each time there's an incarnation, everybody looks around to find out where is the feminine. And so when Sri Ramakrishna came, Sharda Devi was there. Now, interestingly enough, I talk about those things. I don't often talk about that level of things. Um, but interestingly enough, about Ramakrishna is there's no requirement, and with Holy Mother and with Vivekananda, three of them, there's no requirement to see them in any way in particular. That they literally gave permission for you to see whatever you see in them. If just a great teacher, fine. If you want to see them as an incarnation of God, that's fine. If you want to see them as just a great sadhu or a sage or very wise people, that's also fine. But that the effect will be the same because of the power of their lives, of their selflessness and their love and their just inspiring way of being, and their willingness to be so invisible, their willingness to be nothing. Ramakrishna often referred to himself as the dust of the devotees' feet. And so a great example. It's always interesting to me about Ramakrishna that he did nothing, it seems, to cause what happened around him, for his name to be still remembered well over 100 years later, and for there to be shrines around the world with his picture on it, when he really hardly ever broke a 10-mile radius from his little temple, never wrote anything, never advertised a lecture, never put together a book, just simply lived his life as a simple priest at a temple of the Divine Mother. And yet here we are, decades later, studying his life, and even still, some of the greatest swamis say quite easily that even after a lifetime of study, you still are not able to understand or grasp his life. The amount of wisdom packed into that one life. And then when you what I call the triad of avatars, Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, and Swami Vivekananda, that it's kind of a single incarnation of God in three people, showing three radically variable manifestations of God. And it just shows you that God, you can have a complete image of God in so many different ways, through so many different lenses. And it's really helped me kind of play with the idea that the perfect avatar is the summation of all of us. The summation of the entire creation is all telling aspects of the story of the love of God, and all of the infinite ways in which love can manifest. Some of them very difficult to plumb and understand, and some of them very easy. And but always a challenge that inspires growth, inspires expansion, the expansion of mind and the expansion of heart. So Swami Vivekananda said that all expansion is life, all contraction is death. And so to expand your mind, to look for that commonality in everybody, to expand your heart, to tie it together into a singularity with love, with the compassion and grace of love, is really the mission for all of us. It's one of the things I loved about the Vedanta, was that there was no conversion necessary. That the idea that the Divine Mother, that God, however you view he, she, that, they, whatever, that's fine. That there's an infinite numbers of ways of seeing God. And Vivekananda's ideal was that everybody would have their own religion, their own personal religion, with their own personal beloved, and that all of us come home in the end. And our time here is really just about quickening that, really embracing love as a principle and an ideal, and all that it manifests, that selflessness, that forgiveness, that compassion for one another, not even a compassion, a real love for one another. That it's just a natural part of what we are, that we are not the fallen nature. We are the nature of God, of the divine. And that if we can get rid of our fear, get rid of our sense of smallness, our sense of body mind as our defining factor, that allows us to be free in that way. That allows us to love the way we've always wanted to be able to love, without anger interrupting it, without jealousy, without anxiety, without shyness, or with all of those things. All of those things can be used to manifest love, as well as they can be used to hide love. So it's a beautiful ideal, and it's definitely one that we see in the Divine Mother here. So we were talking last week about her having a vision of the Divine Mother Kali, and here she's going to describe it to us the way she described it to Yogin Ma, one of her companions. Holy Mother described this vision in detail in Yogin Ma, who later related the story. When Sri Ramakrishna was gravely ill at the Kasipur garden house, Holy Mother was stricken with grief. One day, she had a vision. A black girl with long hair appeared and sat near her. Realizing that it was Mother Kali, she exclaimed, "Oh, you've come." "Yes, I've come from Dakshineshwar." After further conversation, Holy Mother observed that the girl's neck was bent to one side. She asked, "What has happened to your neck?" Mother Kali replied, "Well, I have a sore throat." Holy Mother, "My goodness, the Master has a sore throat, and you also have it." Mother Kali, "That is true." Thus, Holy Mother was made to understand that the Divine Mother and Sri Ramakrishna were one and the same. This is, oh, here comes Shrikant. This beautiful ideal, that God is beyond gender, and that it's he, she, that, they, it, however you've become accustomed to speaking about your beloved, is fine. And that's the wonder, because I called myself a Vedic Christian for many, many, many years, because of my love for Jesus from growing up in that tradition. And, by sitting in the shrine, simply by sitting in the shrine and doing my practice in the monastery over the years, I came to see that Ramakrishna and Jesus were one. And through that came to understand that all of the avatars, Buddha, Rama, Krishna, Ramakrishna, Chaitanya, that all of these avatars are in fact the same being, the same manifestation of God. They're not individuals. They're holes through which God is seen. And they come at the different times and periods, according to the Gita, whenever righteousness declines in the world. God manifests himself in a pure way, in a direct way, in order to bring the world back into balance, back into harmony, and make it easier for those who are interested to realize God. And so it's wonderful to see that Ramakrishna is seen as Shiva, he's seen as Krishna, he's seen as Rama, he's seen as the Divine Mother Kali, in all these different ways he has manifested. And it's through that and understanding that, growing in my understanding of that I've seen that God appears to you in that personal way. I've had friends share these near-death experience stories that are online and in books many times with me. And quite often they're met by somebody at the end of the tunnel, which is also a common theme in these stories. And that person sometimes is a grandma or grandfather or a family member, and sometimes it's a Jesus, and sometimes it's God, herself. It varies. And I really like to think that when we close the eyes of this body and head out from it, that God meets you in your highest ideal of love, that ideal which you have in your heart, which you may or may not be aware of, as the highest ideal of what love can be, is how God will appear to you. That God is interested primarily in expressing that love for you, that compassion, that grace. And he'll use whatever methods you have in your head to describe it to you, to show himself to you. So we see here that Ramakrishna and the Divine Mother were one and the same. And Holy Mother herself was also deemed to be one in the same. Yoganma recalled another incident that took place in Kasipur. Another day in Kasipur, Holy Mother carried the master's food to his room, which was on the upper floor. The master asked her, "Do you know how to play Asta Casta?" This is a game similar to the English Ludo or the American Parcheesi. Mother said, "No." Master, "If one can pair two checkers, the opponent cannot take them. Likewise, one should unite oneself with the chosen deity and thus be rid of fear. Otherwise, a ripe checker, one that is near the goal, if it is still single, can be turned back. If a man can move in this world with his chosen deity, like a pair of checkers, he will be saved." As Holy Mother listened, she continued with a small household task in which she had been engaged. Suddenly, the master said jokingly, "Are you listening to me or not?" Holy Mother was embarrassed. What a nice idea. That if you, on checkers, if you make it to all the way across the board without losing your piece, it gets doubled, right? And then it can't be taken. And so here's Thakur saying, if you want safety in this world, you want to know that all is well with you, then take God as your second checker. Keep him with you in everything that you do. Keep her with you with everything that you do in this life. And it's been intense the last couple of weeks because I've really been trying to make an effort. My new chair, my new chair is opening a whole new vista of spiritual life for me, which I say tongue in cheek, just because it's hilarious that a chair has become the advent of a better meditation practice. But just really, I've really honestly been trying to make this effort with variable success, more success than in the past, but still pretty questionable with success. Trying to keep myself never more than two thoughts from the mantra, keeping the mantra going at all times. And if I have to think about something, I'll do that. And then I'll add a second thought to it is fine, but no more than two thoughts between being aware of the mantra. And the mantra is much more, in time, probably all of you know this, but I mean, as we've been practicing for, a long time, and I think you have to do it. Well, for everybody, it's different, but for me, it's taken an awfully long time to keep the presence in my mind like that. And, your mantra actually becomes the bliss that you feel inside. Your mantra actually becomes the quiet of your inner world. The mantra actually merges with the peace of your inner self. And so saying your mantra is an all-encompassing experience. It's something that brings your whole being into alignment with the presence of the beloved in you. And when our in our Vedic Christian class, we're following the pilgrim as he's trying to figure out what did God mean when he told us to pray without ceasing. And according to, the Philokalia, that prayer is the Jesus prayer, which is the same as any mantra. It's the name of God and a calling out for that presence, for that that company with us. And so, this really is our task, is to come to a constant state of companionship with divine love, with the divine presence. And just through the enjoyment of that, just through the opening to that, we become virtuous. We become lovers of people. We become compassionate. It's not that we have to be trained up in those things. We don't. Those are our nature. We have to let go of the reasons we don't do them. We have to let go of the reasons that we protect ourselves and that we isolate ourselves and that we only love certain people in certain ways. And really, we've been robbed. Life with as much beauty as it has, we've been robbed of it. I was watching a video the other day, which I'm probably doing way too many of lately, but I'm so touched by some of them. And this one person saved a crow, as a baby, picked him off the road and took him home and nursed it back to health and then let it go. And she kind of lived on the edge of the city on a balcony that looked off into the woods. And every day, ever since she let that crow go, that crow flies back and will land on her if she's out on the porch, or land on the thing, and will always bring a trinket, some bottle cap, some money, all these weird little things. And she has a big giant drawer in her living room that's just full of all of the trinkets that the crow has brought to her. And I look at that and I see, that's love. That's the way that this world has the potential to be. I hear the joke of people becoming, and I say it quite often too, Disney princesses, when a bird lands on their finger, or some animal runs up to them for no reason. But that's the way it's supposed to be. If we could get our hearts open, if we can remember the presence of love, of a divine love, a love that the world hasn't seen outside of the avatars, a love that's unlimited and unconditioned. If we can open our heart to that, because that same image is what we are, that same ideal is what we are, that's the world we were meant to live in. A world where we didn't fear each other, and we certainly didn't fear the world around us. And that there's a great deal to be learned from that, and to be inspired by that, and to remember that in the morning, that you're going into a world whose nature is love. And the way to see that love is paying attention to your inner world, so that you can see your boundaries of ego and let them go, so that you can see your misunderstandings and let them go, and so that you can be what you are when nobody else is telling you what you are, which is that divine character, that divine soul. And so taking the divine as your double checker, so that you don't get caught up in the world. You don't get caught up in states of anxiety and depression and anger and jealousy and hatred and all of that, because the divine presence simply can't happen in the divine presence. It's not that you're not allowed, you're certainly allowed to do whatever, but in the divine presence, there's just a beautiful inspiration, a beautiful gentleness that you just can't violate with egoism like that. And so this is what Ramakrishna is trying to get us to understand, that this is worth the effort that it takes. This is worth more than anything else you're pursuing in your life. And that the time that it takes, the effort that it takes, the suffering that it takes is well worth enduring and well worth going forward on. There's been a few times in my monastic life where I've been so grateful that I held on, because I'm not naturally a monk, I have to say. And so it's taken a lot of work to bend into that form. But the fact that as time passes, if you just keep going, even through the periods where you just don't think you can do it, or you just think this is crazy, or you just can't really believe some of the things that you're trying to do. And, especially in the beginning when your concept of God is kind of two-dimensional and somewhat shaky and you haven't touched anything of the inner self, it's very hard to keep going. A lot of times you feel stupid, especially with a lot of the conversations in the world these days about God. You feel like some naive idiot, that you've created some imaginary friend and blah, blah, blah. In the beginning, it's like that. But if you hang on, you always get surprised by an inner reality that's sharper than the apparent external reality. You get a touch of love. You get a vision of an ideal within that's bigger and better than anything the senses has ever shown you, and that will always make it worth it. And that it's with that understanding, that's faith. That we put all of those memories and those encouragements and those truths and promises from the scriptures, we put them all in a bag called faith, and we just keep that tied on our belt, and it carries us through. And I have to say now, and at this point in my life, as I'm sure there's a gray hair in there somewhere, that I feel like this is the greatest thing that I could have done with this life. I remember being in the monastery, sitting in the shrine. I'd been in I had been in the monastery for 6 years, so I was still pretty young as a monk, and I was kind of having a crisis because, like I said, at that time my view of God was very two-dimensional and still was sort of the old guy in the sky sort of thing. And I was sitting there in the shrine thinking about how much my life had changed from before I joined the monastery, and how difficult it was, and how I just wasn't sure if I could do it. And I was trying to figure out, why am I doing this? Why is this really what I want to do with my life? And it led me to a bedrock realization that has been the groundwork of my spiritual life ever since. And that was this notion. I sat there thinking that day, I was like, well, suppose this stuff is true, then wow, how could I choose anything different? If, what an amazing thing to do with life, to realize God. And then I thought, well, what if I just die? What if there's nothing afterwards? What if there's no God? What if there's no spirit? What if none of this is true and you just die and the light goes out? And I sat there and I thought about that, and I was like, well, if none of this is true, then there's no purpose in life, and you can spend it on anything that you want. And if you can spend your life on anything that you want, isn't reaching for the ideal of perfect love one of the most beautiful ways you could spend a life? And so at that point, I realized it doesn't matter whether there's a God, whether there's heaven, whether there's another body, whether there's, perfect freedom. It doesn't matter. You see, love is its own ideal. Love is worth itself. And this is how we come to that working in this world without any eye of result. We do it for its own sake because it's worth it. We do it for itself because it's beautiful. So these disciplines that I've done through my life, they're not so much for the realization of God, because that so clearly has to be a matter of grace. At this point in my life, I see that very clearly, that the realization of God is really just a matter of grace. My life is about a beautiful ideal, about trying to touch and manifest an infinite love, a love that needs nothing in return. And I think that is the most beautiful life that anybody could ever live. I think that's a wonderful ideal. Fall as many times as you need to, skin as many knees as is required, but always get up and get back to the beautiful effort of becoming human, of manifesting love. So if a person can move in this world with his chosen deity like a pair of checkers, you'll be saved. Saved in the sense that you won't fall away from it. You won't get caught in all the world's machinations out there, the lust and greed that clouds a loving heart. As Holy Mother listened, she continued with a small household task which she had been engaged, and suddenly the master said jokingly, "Are you listening to me or not?" And Holy Mother was embarrassed. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, M records this for the 24th of April in 1886. M came to the garden house accompanied by his wife and son. The boy was 7 years old. It was at the master's request that he brought his wife, who was almost mad with grief owing to the death of one of her sons. That day, the master several times allowed M's wife the privilege of waiting on him. Her welfare seemed to occupy his attention a great deal. In the evening, the Holy Mother came to the master's room to feed him. M's wife accompanied her with a lamp. The master tenderly asked her many questions about her household. He requested her to come again to the garden house and to spend a few days with Holy Mother, not forgetting to ask her to bring her baby daughter. When the master had finished his meal, M's wife removed the plates. He chatted with her for a few minutes. About 9 o'clock in the evening, Sri Ramakrishna was seated in his room with the devotees. He had a garland of flowers around his neck. He told M that he had requested his wife, M's wife, to spend a few days at the garden house with Holy Mother. His kindness touched M's heart. This is just the kind of caring. M's wife was having a lot of problems with depression, and just the master paying this extra attention to her and drawing her close and giving her that kind of love. You see, that's how, I won't say that. I was going to say that's how the crows bring gifts, but it's the same idea that we're always looking for opportunities to love. One of my favorite Western sages is the Peace Pilgrim. And I loved in her book about her life where she says that life for her now is just standing as God's butler in the moment, panning constantly for an opportunity to serve. That's what her life was. Just sitting, it's just standing in God's dining room, watching all the guests, everybody at the table, everybody eating and enjoying themselves. And her sole purpose was to be the divine butler, to just be aware of any need around her, any opportunity to worship by serving God in man, God in human, God in the world. It doesn't have to be a man. It can be a crow. It can be anything. Yogin Ma was a woman of strong determination. Whatever she undertook, she carried through to perfection. After practicing spiritual discipline for some time, according to the master's instructions, she decided that Calcutta was not suitable for such practices. The sacred atmosphere of Vrindavan, she thought, would be much better. Ramakrishna was then staying at the Kasipur garden house for his cancer treatment. When Yoga Ma asked permission to go to Vrindavan, he readily agreed, but he asked her if she had talked to Holy Mother about it. Holy Mother was present and said, "You have said whatever there is to be said. What is there to add?" Nevertheless, the master told Yogin Ma, "My dear child, go. After obtaining her consent," meaning Holy Mother's, "you will get everything." You see. So this is Ramakrishna really recognizing the divinity of Holy Mother. In the Vedanta, we understand, or in one aspect of the Vedanta, it's understood that it's the Divine Mother that must be propitiated. She must give you the final permission to leave this Maya, this world of duality, which is her domain. She has to give you permission to have your realization. It's she that unties the last knot. And so here Ramakrishna is telling Yogin Ma, who has come to him for permission, because Yogin Ma knows who he is. And he's pointing to Sri Sharda saying, you better go and get her permission too. If you have her permission, you will get everything. Right? Just a few days before the master passed away, Durga Charan Nag went to see him. As he entered the room, he heard the master ask for an amalaki fruit, which is soothing for the throat. A devotee replied that none were available because they were out of season. But Durga Charan thought that if the word amalaki came from the master's lips, then the fruit must be available somewhere. Without saying anything, he left in search of it. For 2 days, he checked different gardens in the suburbs of Calcutta. On the third day, he appeared before the master with a few Amalaki fruits. The master was very pleased and said to the Holy Mother, "Please, prepare a mixed vegetable curry with hot chilies for him. He is from East Bengal, so he loves hot dishes." When the food was served, however, Durgacharan would not touch it. It was his fasting day, Ekadashi, the 11th day of the moon. So the master touched the food and sanctified it, and Durgacharan took it as prasad. In his exuberant devotion, Durgacharan ate not only the food, but the leaf plate as well. From that time on, the devotees were careful when serving Durgacharan prasad on a leaf plate. As soon as he finished his meal, they would snatch away the leaf plate. They even removed seeds and pits from the fruits before offering them to him, lest he should eat them as well. What a beautiful, what a beautiful faith. I mean, just at every angle. Can you imagine that? Thakur wants an Amalaki fruit, which people are like, no, you can't find those, none available. But this man was like, look, if it came out of the mouth of Ramakrishna, it exists somewhere. He wouldn't have said it if it wasn't somewhere. And for 2 days, he searches the grocery stores and the yards of everyone in Calcutta and ends up finding a couple of these fruits and bringing them to the master. And then he hands it to the master. The master, for a reward, for thank gratefulness to him, has Holy Mother make a special dish for him, but he won't eat it because it's Ekadashi and he's fasting that day. But then the master takes some of it and it becomes prasad. It becomes a gift from the master. And then without question, he eats the whole thing and then even eats the plate, eats the banana leaf that it was served on, not wanting to leave anything behind. And so then from then on, when the devotees were serving prasad, stuff that had been offered to God, that they had to make sure they took all the pits out of the peaches, because this guy would eat them all because they were prasad. They were from the Lord. He didn't care. I'll eat the plate. I'll eat all the pits and the seeds and everything else. Just
Maharaj,
yes.
the plate would probably be the banana leaf.
Yeah. But you're not supposed to eat them. Look at that faith. It's fun. I mean, that's the guys. It's fun to look at someone like that. That simple faith, that absolute commitment. There's no other thing entertained in a mind like that, in a mind that loves God. That there is no limit to that service. There is no limit to what can be achieved by such a person. That love is the most powerful thing in the universe, actually. One day, a Holy Mother was cleaning the wound in the master's throat with a cotton swab. He cried out in pain, "Ah, what are you doing?" Then he withdrew his mind from his body and said, "All right, you are cleaning with the swab. Go ahead." He remained silent. Another day, the master said to the Holy Mother, "All sufferings have gone through this body. None of you will have to suffer anymore. I have suffered for everyone in the world." Wow. I have suffered for everyone in the world. All sufferings have gone through this body. None of you will have to suffer anymore. I have suffered for everyone in the world. Ramakrishna was slowly dropping the curtain on his divine play. So he started making arrangements for Holy Mother. One day, when his nephew Ramlal came to see him at Kasipur, the master said to him, "Serve the Divine Mother of Dakshineshwar. Then you will not lack anything." He said to the Holy Mother, "You will live in Kamarpukur and look after Lakshmi for a while. As the devotees lovingly serve me, they will do the same for you." He then told Ramlal, look after your aunt so that she can live in Kamarpakor. Ramlal replied in an unconcerned manner, she can live wherever she wants. The master understood that Ramlal was trying to avoid his responsibility. The master rebuked him, saying, what is this? What have you become? A man? In fact, Ramlal never looked after the Holy Mother. Ramakrishna was nearing the ocean of Satchitananda, and he began to give his last instructions to the Holy Mother. Let me tell you something. Do not stretch out your hand to anyone, even for a penny. You will not lack simple food and clothes. If you hold your hand out to anyone, remember, you will sell him your head also. If it is absolutely necessary, you may beg for your food, but never live in anyone else's house. Devotees may welcome you into their houses with great respect and affection, but never allow your own hut in Kamarpakor to fall into disrepair. Please stay in Kamarpakor. Grow some spinach and eat that spinach with rice. Chant the name of God. One day, shortly before his death, the master was gazing intently at the Holy Mother. She said, tell me what is on your mind. He pointed to his body and replied in a tone of complaint, look here. Won't you do anything? Must this do everything? But what can I do? She protested. I am a mere woman. No, no, the master insisted. You will have to do many things. Another day at Kasipur, Holy Mother carried the master's food to his room and found him lying in bed with his eyes closed. She said aloud, please get up, it is your mealtime. When the master opened his eyes, he appeared to have returned from a faraway realm. He said to her in an abstracted mood, look at the people of Calcutta. They are like worms squirming in the darkness. You must bring light to them. This is not my burden alone. You too shall have to share it. Ramakrishna promised Holy Mother, those who come and take refuge in you, I will come to them during their last moments. I will hold their hands and accompany them. There's your promise. If you've got your promise highlighter, pull it out. There's a beautiful one. Listen to that. Ramakrishna promised the Holy Mother, those who come and take refuge in you, I will come to them during their last moments. I will hold their hand and I will accompany them. So there's a promise to you. You will not leave this world alone. You will not die alone. Thakur here, through the Divine Mother, has promised you will not die alone. A few days before the master passed away, he sent for Holy Mother. He taught her 8 mantras and then said, these are all Siddha mantras, mantras for attaining illumination. Please teach these mantras to those who come to you for initiation. Those who receive one of these mantras will have the vision of their chosen deities during their lifetime, or at least at the time of death. Later, many people will come to you for initiation. Initiate them with these mantras. You know, these are still the mantras that are still being passed on through the order, through the monks, the initiating monks. And so here we've got 2 beautiful promises tonight, directly from Ramakrishna, you know, involving the Holy Mother, even through her power, that your mantra, the mantra you've been given from your teacher, that he says here, those who receive one of these mantras will have the vision of their chosen deities during their lifetime, or at least at the time of their death. Right? So you're stuck. You're going to see God before it's over. There's no way out. Run where you want. Hide the best you can. Mother's got you by the tail. Oh, that's a beautiful promise. I've never seen that one. That's really, 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 really encouraging. That's amazing. Latu recalled, I have never seen such an intelligent woman as the mother. While serving the master, if any of us were depressed or disappointed, she understood. She would send encouraging words through Jogan to that disciple, to one of her friends. She would always know who was down, who wasn't doing well, who was struggling. And she would send encouraging words through Jogan to that disciple. Ask him not to be depressed. The master's health is better today, and the opening of the wound seems outwardly dry. This is how the mother inspired us. Look, it's her own husband, her own chosen ideal dying. And she's taking care of the mourning and suffering of the others, the disciples and the friends. That's a heart. She wasn't looking for them to comfort her. Her comfort was to comfort others. That's what made her an incarnation. That's what makes her a hole through which God can be seen. No concern or worry for herself. Her eyes were always on others, always to help, always to encourage, always to lift up. A day before the master's passing away, there was a terrible thunderstorm at noon. The mother and Lakshmi heard a loud crack of thunder and rushed to the master's room upstairs. Lakshmi was very frightened. Seeing her fearful face, the master said, You see, I don't like to see a gloomy, grouchy face. Hearing these words, Lakshmi smiled. One day toward the end, the master asked Shashi to call Holy Mother. When she arrived, the master said, You see, I do not know why my mind nowadays remains absorbed in Brahman. She understood what the master meant. He was planning to merge into Brahman. She saw her husband's emaciated body, and she said, she shed a few silent tears. Oh, goodness. Now we're going to read about the master's passing. All right. On the 15th of August, 1886, Holy Mother saw some bad omens. She recalled, on that day, everything was topsy-turvy, beginning in the morning. I was cooking khichdi, rice and lentils together, for the master's disciples, and it burned at the bottom. I served the top portion to them, and we ate the bottom portion. After my bath, I hung my red-bordered sari outside to dry in the sun, and someone stole it. I tried to lift the earthen water jar, and it slipped from my hand, and it broke into pieces. At the end of the day, the master was seated on his bed, reclining on a bolster. He was completely silent. The disciples and devotees were seated around him, their hearts heavy with sorrow. They thought the master had lost his voice and would not speak any more. Holy Mother and Lakshmi rushed upstairs. As soon as they arrived, the master said in a feeble voice, I'm glad you're here. I feel as if I'm going to a faraway country across water, very far away. Holy Mother burst into tears. The master consoled her, saying, Why should you feel troubled? You will live as you are living now. They, referring to Narendra and the others, will do for you what they are doing for me. Look after Lakshmi and keep her with you. These were the master's last words to the Holy Mother in his physical body. That evening, the master was hungry, so Holy Mother made farina pudding. He relished it and ate a good quantity without any discomfort. His attendant washed his mouth and carefully laid him on the bed, fanned him, and suddenly the master went into samadhi. It was 1:02 a.m., the 16th of August, 1886. Suddenly a thrill passed through the master's body, making his hair stand on end. His eyes became fixed on the tip of his nose. His face was lit up with a smile. In a clear voice, the master repeated the name of Kali, his beloved deity, 3 times, and then entered into Maha Samadhi. When Holy Mother heard the crying upstairs, she rushed up the steps and cried out, "Oh, Mother Kali, what have I done that you have departed, leaving me alone in the world?" Seeing her weeping, Baburam and Yogan went to her, and Golok Ma took her to her room. Afterward, she remained silent. That's must be so hard. You know, it's so hard to lose people like that. But, you know, Thakur was really setting her eyes, saying, "Don't pay attention to this going. I'm just going to another room. You know, you take care of Lakshmi. The disciples will take care of you like they've taken care of me. You know, look at the people of Calcutta, see their need. It cannot be my burden. You must share it with me. You have to do a lot of work." And it was Holy Mother that really helped to form the order that was kind of the guide of wisdom in the first few years of the order. And the monks wouldn't do anything without her permission. You see, so Thakur taught us how to endure these passings of our friends, of our families, our parents, our loved ones. You know, keep your eyes open to the need for you in this world. You know, keep your eyes open to serving others. Keep your eyes alert for the needs of the people around you. This isn't a big thing. Death is not the most important thing. It's not even a big thing. It's just taking off a pillowcase, you know, becoming free. And so this is how we manage that. When people go, we don't let ourselves get consumed with their absence. We take the essence of their life. We realize that the love we have, that we share with that person, is who the person is. The person is not a body and not a mind. The person is the love that they engender in you, the love that you remember when they go away, when the body leaves, when the body mind is gone. When you remember that person, it's not the image of the body mind that is who they are. It's the love that you feel when you imagine that body mind of their play, of who you thought they were. And so by knowing that, your thought of them doesn't have to be the cause of sorrow. Your thought of them can be a great joy to you, a great celebration, because that love that you shared with that person is still in you, because it came from in you. It didn't come from them. It came from within you, from that divine well of pure love. And so Thakur is trying to keep her mind on that, trying to tell her, this isn't the big part. The body mind is going. I'm going away to a far away place, you know. But you stay here and remember that the world needs you, that you must suffer, not suffer, you must serve. You must suffer. You must serve. You have to give love. You have to take care of all your children. So it's quite a wonderful view of the divine. All right, let's stop there for this evening, and we have time for some good questions and answers.